From rusty old Air Force bases holding both ruined craft and restless spirits, to historic hotels famous for acting as hideouts to some of the most notorious gangs in life, and infamous for harboring their chilling ghosts after death, the old Pueblo is buried deep beneath layers of history, mystery, and legends of the paranormal, which is why the Speakeasy is absolutely thrilled to bring you our list of picks for the most haunted places in the city of Tucson, Arizona. Are you ready? Number 5. The Cathedral of St. Augustine. The Cathedral of St. Augustine, located off of South Stone Avenue, proudly carries its mantle as the official mother church to the Roman Catholic Diocese of Tucson. Its parish's history began with the much earlier chapel of the Royal Presidio of St. Augustine, which, according to early historical accounts, was founded in 1776. By the 1850s, both the chapel and Presidio had fallen into disuse. Through the 1860s, when Father Joseph Machubuef, after surveying the area, advised the Bishop of Santa Fe that a priest should tend the community, whose population was, at the time, nearing 600. In 1862, or by some accounts 63, the bishop sent one Father Donato Ruggieri to fulfill this task. After each one of the father's services, his parishioners were said to walk to the area where the Manning House now sits, collect adobe bricks, and carry them back to the future site of the cathedral, slowly forming floors, then walls, and finally a roof. The structure, even called the cathedral back then, was officially completed in 1868. In 1897, Bishop Peter Bourgarde rebuilt the church in its entirety, though his more extravagant requests for Gothic spires were never fulfilled. And thankfully so, as the cathedral had one more transformation to make, in 1928 when it was renovated and restructured to its current Mexican Baroque theme. At the church's centennial from 1966 to 1968, the cathedral was rebuilt for restorative purposes, the process preserving its classic appearance. In 1981, the site received the Pamplona crucifix, a cross carved in Spain and carbon dated at somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 to 800 years in age. The Cathedral of St. Augustine remains open to the public to this day and holds regular mass for all interested. Over its impressive existence, a number of inexplicable happenings have been reported from the property, including strange cold spots on hot nights, the feeling that one is never truly alone, and the smell of burning incense coming from empty rooms. In one startling account, a witness reports going to the restroom and finding a lady in black lying on the floor, reeling abnormally before fading into nothingness. By some claims, this was the spirit of St. Catherine Drexel, who died here, but this has never been confirmed or further investigated. Also reported across the property are disembodied voices, footsteps, and instances in which personal electronics behave erratically. Lastly, and most famously, the chilling ghost of a faceless nun has been sighted often at the cathedral, sometimes levitating in courtyards, at others drifting from or to the front doors. Some who have found themselves in her presence report feeling extreme and sudden fear, as if they are in danger, while others report feeling chilled, as though all heat is being leached from their bodies. Strangely, it's said this faceless nun phenomenon is not unique to the St. Augustine and is seen in many cathedrals across the globe. Some tales tell that these ominous presences are the result of nuns who passed before completing their self-portraits, sentencing them to walk the earth for eternity without a face. Number 4. DavisMonthan Air Force Base. DavisMonthan Air Force Base and Aircraft Boneyard is a United States Air Force base located off of South Wilmot Road, about 5 miles southeast of downtown Tucson, that is best known for acting as final resting place to all excess military and U.S. government aircraft and aerospace vehicles. The AFB's history starts in 1919, when the city of Tucson opened the first city-owned airfield where the rodeo grounds sit today. The current field was officially established in 1925 as DavisMonthan landed landing field, named in honor of 2 World War I pilots who were killed in action. In 1927, the runway was officially opened, with none other than Charles Lindbergh himself flying into the field for dedication ceremonies. Upon its opening, it was declared the largest municipal airport in the United States. It took the U.S. military under a year from the field's opening to take up operations on the site. Together, civilian and military usage of the airfield worked until 1940, when, in the shadow of a looming World War II, it was officially transformed into the Tucson Army Airfield. From 1945 to 1946, the AFB housed German prisoners of war. Following World War II, active military operations were launched elsewhere, and activity on the base slowed, prompting the U.S. to utilize the site for a different purpose. Tucson's rather hot and dry climate, coupled with its alkali soil, makes it the perfect place to store and preserve aircraft. After a time, it was designated as the military's boneyard, while the field was renamed DavisMonthan Air Force Base in 1948. Today, the prestigious AFB is actively owned and operated by the U.S. military, who uses it to store more than 4,400 aircraft, 13 aerospace vehicles, and what we assume might be a mountain of random flight technologies. The property is open only to active duty military and families, with limited access for veterans and officials. Over the years, and up into recent times, a number of stories have emerged from this now secure facility, from civilians when they were still welcomed, and from military officials alike. Many report strange cold spots felt across the field's expanse and throughout connected neighborhoods, shadowy figures lurking around hangars and old craft at night, and the extreme sensation of being closely followed by someone or something unseen. The most famous spirit said to haunt DavisMonthan is said to be that of a ghostly World War II fighter pilot, whose full-bodied apparition has been sighted wandering the base, mostly after dark. When this ghost nears officials with flashlights or patrol vehicles, many report their rides and electronics failing instantly, leaving them on foot in the pitch black to face their fears. This ghostly pilot has also been spotted walking straight through security fencing on the east end of the field, crossing Kolb Road, and then quickly fading away. Also reported at DavisMonthan are disembodied footsteps, strange scratching and knocking sounds seemingly coming from within old craft, and voices or shouts heard emanating from thin air. Lastly, in the area that once housed prisoners of war, many have reported being overcome by an extreme and overwhelming feeling they describe as sadness, hopelessness, and defeat. Number 3. The Rialto Theatre. The Rialto Theatre, located off Congress Street, smack dab in downtown Tucson, is a performance art and concert venue that boasts its reputation as one of the first movie theaters to open in the area. Planning for the Rialto Theatre started circa 1915, with the theater officially opening its doors much later in 1922. Initially, it hosted silent films, stage performances, and vaudeville shows. In 1929, the theater was purchased by Paramount Publix, a large-scale corporation which would later reorganize into none other than Paramount Pictures Incorporated. Through the 1930s, the theater underwent several renovations and modernizations as they prepared to host some of the first talking pictures. In 1947, the name of the theater was changed to the Paramount to reflect its ownership. From 1963 to 1984, following a recession in Tucson, the property was sold and changed hands several times. It was used for many purposes over the years. In 1984, a boiler explosion resulted in the building being closed indefinitely and eventually condemned. The old theater remained abandoned until 1995, when it was purchased by Paul Bear and Jeb Schoonover. The duo completely renovated the building and property, reopening it under its original name. In 2004, successful at their task, the partners sold the theater directly to the city of Tucson as part of the Rio Nuevo downtown revitalization project. Today, the Rialto Theatre is managed and operated by the Rialto Theatre Foundation and hosts around 150 events each year, stage performances of all types and genres. It's estimated that the theater brings in a whopping 100,000 guests or more to said performances, and among those annual visitors, a number report encounters with things they just can't explain, including objects and props moving on their own, the feeling of being watched, and ghostly fogs seen quickly occasionally darting around corners or through walls when spotted by the living. One local legend tells that in the mid-1940s, a pianist was killed on the property when his bench collapsed, resulting in his piano toppling onto him. It's said that the piano forced his head into the concrete wall of the orchestra pit, with disturbing results, killing him instantly. His spirit has been known to speak in the backgrounds of recordings, cause pianos to play by themselves, and has even materialized on some occasions, looking so solid that those around him think he's just another theater goer, and at other times, pale with a grisly and sickening head wound. Occasionally, staff and guests to the Rialto report small pranks being played on them, or having personal possessions go missing, only to turn up in strange places later. And while some believe these happenings may also be the work of the ghostly pianist, others claim it could be the restless spirit of one of the many other deaths to occur on the property over the building's existence. Lastly, reported all throughout the building are doors opening and closing on their own, theater chairs lowering as if someone unseen is sitting in them, and malfunctions with lighting and sound equipment during shows, supported by no plausible explanation. Number 2. Hotel Congress. Hotel Congress, located in downtown Tucson off of the massive confluence that is East Congress Street, North Toole, and 4th and 5th Avenues, is a historic hotel famous for being the site of the capture of the notorious Dillinger Gang. The hotel was originally constructed in 1918 as part of an expansion to Congress Street itself. Much debate was to be had as to which name the new inn would take. Eventually, Hotel Congress was selected via a naming competition held by a local paper. The hotel's claim to fame came in 1934 when infamous gangster and Public Enemy No. 1 John Dillinger and friends were captured on the property. Following a string of early robberies, the Dillinger Gang decided to hole up in the hotel. Unfortunately for them, a fire broke out that very same night in the basement and quickly spread to the 3rd floor. Dillinger and his men barely escaped from the roof via ladder, and Pushing Fate itself actually asked firemen to go retrieve their belongings after rescue. Firemen identified the men, who were then locked up by authorities for a short time. Following the famous fire, the hotel was quickly restored, fueled by a nation traveling to see one of Dillinger's famous landmarks. In 1985, Hotel Congress was purchased by Richard and Shauna Ozeran, who began a series of much-needed repairs and modernizations on the old palace. The same year, the couple was able to launch a music venue within the hotel called Club Congress. Club Congress is recognized as the longest-running venue of this kind west of the Mississippi. Today, Hotel Congress is still owned by the Ozerans, who have continued to cherish and maintain the building, namely its impressive interior, much of which originated in the 30s. The hotel offers not only lodgings, but continues to provide a prime music venue, splurge-worthy choices from its restaurant, and tasteful thirst quenchers from its ever-popular bar. Over its many years, a number of reports of supernatural happenings have emerged from Hotel Congress, many of which entail sightings of ghosts thought to be former guests, employees, and the like, usually seen wandering the halls or lounging in various pieces of furniture. The ghost of a man in an old-fashioned top hat has been sighted often in the lobby, sometimes reading a paper or sipping a drink. This entity has been known to disappear shortly after being spotted. A ghostly maid has been sighted all across the property, attending daily tasks from a job in a life long past. On occasion, this maid has been known to materialize inside of locked rooms, startling guests briefly before vanishing once again. All throughout the hotel, guests report disembodied footsteps, voices, electrical malfunctions, and even instances in which light switches or water faucets flick or turn on by themselves, as if someone or something unseen is manipulating them. If you're planning on staying at Hotel Congress with the goal of catching some otherworldly activity, there are a few particular rooms to take note of. The ghost of a man named Vince is said to inhabit room 220. It's said in life he lived in the room for 36 years and was known for constantly borrowing butter knives from the restaurant. To date, butter knives often go missing to turn up, guess where? Room 220. We think it would be pretty cool to get a butter knife from Vince. But we're kind of odd ourselves. In room 214, the spirit of a man donning an older suit has been sighted by guests, who sometimes wake in the middle of the night to find him pacing near the foot of the bed or staring out the window. This spirit has been seen in the connected hallways of the second floor, as well as from street level, staring from the window when the room is supposed to be vacant. In room 242, the ghost of a woman in a long white dress has woken guests in the middle of the night by sitting on their beds. Those who encounter her report feeling her weight first, then a strange chill permeating their blankets. Some report feeling strangely comforted by her presence. In the basement, the ghost of a cowboy in historic gear has been sighted. Some speculate this specter may be straight from the Wild West itself, from before the building ever even stood here, and most who run into this wrangler report sensing a certain gruffness about him, a heavy presence that makes them feel as if they're being watched and judged, possibly even in danger. The spirit of a man who local legend says died of a heart attack is often seen in the hotel's highest windows, and a female presence donning Victorian-era garb makes frequent appearances in the stairwell by the lobby. Many who run into her report smelling the strong aroma of roses. Lastly, the ghost of a man dubbed simply T.S. has been sighted on the second floor. It's said T.S. died in a gunfight after an argument over a card game in the hotel's lobby. T.S. is usually seen staring from various windows or over the lobby, donning an old-fashioned high-quality gray suit, and sometimes sporting several grievous bullet wounds. Number 1. The University of Arizona. The University of Arizona, U of A, or just plain UA, is a public research university located in central Tucson, whose official campus sits about 1 mile north of downtown. UA boasts the impressive feat of having been the first university founded in the Arizona Territory, and is world-renowned for its extensive space exploration program. The university was originally founded in 1885 on land donated by supportive community members. Construction on Old Main began in 1887. The school's first classes met in 1891 and boasted an enrollment of just 32 students. There were no separate high schools nearby, and as such, UA actually also held prep classes until 1914. By 1915, the school system provided 3 college branches: letters, arts and sciences, mines and engineering, and agriculture. Over the years, as the student body grew, a need for campus expansion arose. Expansions would go on to eventually include 380 acres of land, 179 buildings, and would result in the housing of over 45,000 students. In 1995, Cochise Community College was made an official branch of the University of Arizona, or UA South. Today, the university is governed by the Arizona Board of Regents and is the only university in the state of Arizona to hold a spot on the board for the Association of American Universities. UA also plays home to the Arizona State Museum, which offers both the oldest and largest anthropological museum collection in the region. Shockingly, ghost stories surrounding the University of Arizona date back more than a century, with many reported occurrences persisting into modern times. In the Modern Languages building, the ghost of a young woman in a long gown and shawl is often sighted roaming about, sometimes floating through the auditorium. Local legend tells she is the restless soul of a murder victim who was dumped in an old well long before the university stood. Some claim the well is still hidden somewhere on campus. At the west end of Old Main lies the Alexander Berger Memorial Fountain, named after none other than Berger himself, a wealthy Tucson benefactor and philanthropist who passed on in 1940. This particular fountain memorializes Berger's nephew, along with 12 other students who died as soldiers fighting in World War I. The fountain has 13 spouts, one for each life lost. A number of odd happenings have been reported in its close vicinity, including inexplicable clogs and overflows, waterspouts spraying passers-by at random, and even disturbing instances in which lone walkers nearing the fountain report watching the waters turn red, accompanied by the disembodied sounds of old rifle fire, shouted commands, and artillery that fade quickly into the night. Other disturbing occurrences have been reported in and around Old Main itself, which notably is the oldest building on campus. Local legend tells Old Main was constructed on land that once acted as an ancient village, village, and possibly later, a burial ground to native peoples of the area. From within Old Main, many report faucets and light switches turning on and off by themselves, doors opening and slamming shut on their own, sometimes dangerously near fingers, and shadow-like entities seen prowling empty rooms and the darker corners of the building. Solidifying these claims, these phenomena have actually been reported not just by students alone, but also by faculty and workmen to Old Main over the years. The Bear Down Gym was originally constructed in 1926 as a men's-only campus facility. The gym was named for the last words uttered by renowned student-athlete John Button Bird Salmon as he lay dying following a particularly nasty auto accident. Tell them to bear down," he said with his last breath. His spirit was first sighted by his coach shortly after his passing, wearing his jersey, a confident smile on his face. His final wish to bear down Arizona would eventually grow to hold mantle as the school's fight song. Salmon's spirit has been sighted countless times since, usually before big games, or in desperate moments, just in time to rally the team. Though Salmon is the most notable ghost pressing iron at the Bear Down, interestingly enough, local legend tells he's not alone. During World War II, for a time, the Bear Down Gym was actually converted into military barracks for students in training. Many of these students would leave, and, tragically, never return. Their spirits are sighted often, roaming the gym, melancholy looks on their faces. Some say restless at the realization that they should have never left the safety of their beloved school. One strange and often startling entity sighted across the entirety of the university's campus is that of Rufus. For those of you unfamiliar with the University of Arizona, their beloved mascot, which is a bobcat, was actually created in honor of a real, live bobcat named, you guessed it, Rufus. Rufus, or Rufus, Arizona to be exact, was received by the university in 1915. Tragically, he only survived 1 year at the school before his untimely death in 1916. Since the date of his passing, a large number of faculty members, students, workmen, visitors, and pretty much anyone stepping foot on school grounds have reported being surprised, often at night, by a spectral Rufus, who's been known to leap suddenly from bushes or out of low-hanging branches, and has even led groups of students on scavenger hunts or wild goose chases around campus before fading into nothingness. In the Robert L. Nugent building, the spirit of a young woman has been sighted, as well as heard sobbing from empty rooms, and many entering report feeling closely watched by someone unseen. Disturbingly, Maricopa Hall was built atop the site of a horrid fight that occurred at some point through the 1860s. Many nearing or entering Maricopa report the sounds of people screaming, disembodied footsteps, and citing various full-bodied apparitions from the period, sometimes covered in blood. Another legend surrounding Maricopa tells of a young woman who discovered her fiancé was cheating on her, driving her to take her own life. Her restless soul has been sighted crying quietly near the entrance. Lastly, Centennial Hall. The renowned Centennial Hall was constructed as a concert hall in 1936. It's said that before the school was ever even a pipe dream, a young man was killed here in a duel over a woman. His spirit has been sighted wandering the hall in clothing from the mid to late 1800s, and has even been known to stop and chat briefly with unsuspecting members of the living. If you go looking for this specter expecting a pleasant conversation, you may want to brush up on your Spanish, as it's said this apparition actually doesn't understand a lick of English. Also reported in Centennial are the sounds of a piano playing itself late at night, strange winds that seem to kick up out of nowhere when all doors and windows are closed, and a young female spirit in a colonial dress often spied either back or near stage during performances. With this campus's ridiculously interesting history, coupled with its range of frightening, often chilling hauntings, it's simple science as to why we chose the University of Arizona as our pick for the most haunted place in the city of Tucson. Thank you everyone for tuning in to our list of picks for the most haunted places in the one and only city of Tucson. If you enjoyed hearing our ghost stories and legends as much as we enjoyed telling them to you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and make sure you have notifications turned on so you get an alert when fresh content is coming out. Throw us a like if you feel like we deserve it, and most importantly, share this video and our channel with anyone you think deserves a good scare. We'll see you next time.